It's been in festivals, people have commended it. I think we are up for nomination here as well for a competition here in Lifanima. We've been nominated in Africa as well, so, so it's been a journey. I want to thank my team, my American partners and backers, about 108 of them who backed us financially. Right now we are trying to see how we can make it into a series, and we are currently talking to broadcasters. They have our pitch deck, and we are currently talking to our broadcasters, like Netflix, Amazon, to see how we can make a series out of this. So if you have any other questions, I'll be willing to ask.
Of course, I have questions. Do we have questions? Not yet. Okay, we're still okay. Okay, I need to explain something here. Ogaiwa is the convener of
Lagos Comic
Con. Lagos Comic Con. So he's the one that brings all of us together for the past 11 years. Wow, so it's huge. Is there anybody here that doesn't know Lagos Comic Con? That doesn't know about Lagos Comic Con? And if that's the first part, then has not been to. You've never been. It's you have to be there. You have to be. Lagos Comic Con it's like, if you didn't go to Mecca, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's it's the Mecca of comics,
yes,
in
that kind of thing. And so what I was trying to bring out of that is that everything he does is usually big. He has that thing for something. So when you watch Ajaka, I know that wearing this, the numbers wearing this big when Ajaka showed, but there's sort of this hugeness the film has. I know part of it comes from the sound, and there's this ambience he has. So we'd like you to share that, because sometimes, when we do things like animation, and what you have in front of you usually is a small screen and everything, so all that you're doing is very small, especially when you don't have too much of a budget and all of that. But when you watch Ajaka, it's a bit of... Okay. Awesome. Okay, so Uncle K has, Uncle Muyiwa has said that they would
Nobody just sits out. How long you sit here? You just sit. Go back to it. Nobody is sitting. Nobody.
You still mourn him, Ajaka, father's boy.
Shango, the vulture hovers around the dying long before it gives up its last breath.
This carcass is cold and long gone, brother. The council favored me over you. Do yourself the honor and leave.
And if I refuse, little brother,
Then I will make you.
then do it now. Kill your king. Let us mock our father's
You
grave.
know you won't last one round in my presence.
I dare you.
I will kill you.
What will start to do? Yeah, check it out. So the chicks already okay. Okay. Huh?
Thank you. So you see what I was talking about? it's huge, you know. So can you tell us about that?
Well, I've seen this like over 100 times, but every time I watch it, it still has that you know. And I think one of the things that we try to do is we try to make it a film that should be watched in a cinema. And the audio was fantastic. Kudos to John Bars, who did a fantastic job. It's surround sound, you know, it's plays from all the speakers and you can actually feel the fight. And we wanted to make it very authentic. You know, I heard people chuckle and laugh when you heard some Yoruba, you know, that kind of, you know, wanted to bring that authentic Yoruba-ness into it. And I think for me, one of the things that I want to represent in Nigeria is to show that Nigeria can actually compete internationally. Yes. that's what I stand for. It's what I always preach. It's what I always try to say, that we can do it. This production is actually 100% Nigerian, except for the American voices that you see in there. You know, it's the music, the animation, everything was done locally. And that makes me proud. And I think that should make you proud. You know, so it took us a while to make it, but we just wanted to make something that will represent us, something that will show us in good lights. I was tired of giving excuses of why we couldn't do a quality production, you know. And that's why even right now, we are currently working on another film that hopefully will release in February next year, which is going to be in 3D, but it's going to set a bar again for 3D animation in Nigeria. So watch out.
Can I ask one more question? You have questions? Yes, okay. Okay, let me pick your questions then. All right. Okay, just go ahead.
Okay, we are in and out of the project because Spoof Animation also does service work. So we had other people's work that we're working on. But in and out, we spent around 4 or 5 months working on it. Took around about 40 people, you know, working on it, animators, colorists, in-betweeners, cleanup artists, compositors, editors, about 40 people that worked on it. So it was a very hectic one, interesting one, and we were glad we could finally achieve it and pull it through. Yeah, thank you.
So any other questions? Okay, is there? Okay.
All right, I'm actually a fan of your work. I'm a 2D animator, so I've just seen the difficult part there, the frame, the camera angles and the shot. So if I'm to do 30 seconds of this as a 2D animator, how long do you think it will take me?
Just you alone?
Yes, I want to know if it's possible for one person to do 30 seconds of this.
Okay, and that's one other thing that we are trying to also redefine, you know, in animation. Animation is not a one-man show, you know, and I think that's why we've not been able to get to the level we want to get to. It's not a one-man show. One person should not want to achieve this. There's no point, you know. And it's one of the challenges we actually face internationally, because now you do a production like this, you can't scale it. And that's the problem we have. You know, we have people do short films, people like it, they want more, but you can't scale it because there's nobody to do the work. Okay, at the end of the day, they really want to now do it, they go abroad and they cut us from the supply chain, meaning nobody in Nigeria does it, they do it abroad. So I don't know your skill set, I don't know if you're a storyboard artist, I don't know if you're a director, I don't know if you understand camera angles, because if you watch this, it's not just animation. There's, when we were screening it at, we were screening it at the French embassy. I don't know what we were doing then. The French invited us to screen it. And there was a filmmaker, Daniel Oriahi. You know, he's a popular filmmaker in Nigeria. He teaches at the Ebony Life Academy. So he watched up, he was like, I refused to watch it online because I wanted to watch it on the screen because I felt you made this for the cinema. I said, yes, I made it for the cinema. He said, congratulations. I said, this is cinema. You know, this is cinema. So it's not just about making animation, it's about making cinema, it's about making a film. You know, and I think that's another gospel we need to preach. Animation is a film. It's not just something kids do. It's not something somebody does in his room. It's a film. You know, we are filmmakers. You know, I'm a filmmaker by making this, okay? So I think that's how we should look at it. So give and take, you need to look at your strengths. Who are you? How fast are you? My best hand right now in Spoof does 5 seconds per day. So it takes him like maybe a week to just do the animation parts. He doesn't do cleanup, he doesn't do other parts, because in Spoof we have a pipeline. And the reason why we have this so that we can scale up. If you ask me how long it will take to make this a series, I can tell you based on the manpower and the pipeline and the structure we have put in place in Spoof animation. Hope I answered your question.
Yeah, you did.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Your question. Yes.
Yes, I just want to find out, I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes.
Loud and clear.
Okay, so what's the path to sustainability, right? Now you talked about many hands, different skill sets, you talked about the effort going into the right sound, all of that. What's the path to actual sustainability when this becomes an industry?
beautiful question. Very authentic question. Lovely. The part sustainability for me, I would say, one, we need to keep surviving this industry. And that's why when we have events like this that support animation, I always try to be there because let's give a round of applause to Mr. Muyiwaka. Wonderful work, keeping this alive. Thank you, sir, for doing what you are doing. Keeping this alive is the first thing. We need to survive. We need to survive the industry. We are losing a lot of hands in this industry. Many of them are japa. Okay, we need to survive this industry. If you're not careful, at the end of the day, there will not be anything left anymore. That's the first thing. Survive by having clients work, survive by doing other things to keep paying for bills in the office. Second, have more events like that. And we need to have more people that have access to money to come to events like this. And I'm excited about the next panel session. It's going to be awesome. We need to all wait and listen. We need to be involved. We need to of people who can link us up to all those networks and say, look, listen to this guy who made Ajaka, give him a deal. Because sometimes the government should also put their foot down and say, look, we want local content. Okay, not everything abroad. Let's have local content and animation. Okay, and I think the next thing also is that animation studios should also step up in terms of structure, in terms of pipeline, in terms of scalability of their products. How scalable is your business? Can your business grow bigger? Can you, if for example CDN says they're giving you 50 million, how fast can you scale up? How fast can you turn 40 staff into 200 staff and you will be able to manage them? These are the questions that we need to ask, and these are the things that we need to start putting in place. Also, co-productions and stuff like that needs to be put in place. Having like agents who are international agents who believe in Nigeria and can now even take some of our products and now do a pre-sale or sell it abroad to broadcasters. Say, look, I'm going to put money into this. I'm going to come into Nigeria and invest. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay.
So I see this project is a very, very huge one. I just wanted to ask, did you work with, your 40 staffs, were they all specialists? Like specialists in lighting, specialists in this? Do you have any other, like, okay, this person can fit into it? Any of them?
Wow, these are very beautiful questions. I love it. I love it. I love it. One of the things that we've also been able to do is that we've been able to find a way whereby a beginner can fit into the pipeline. We have people who just join Spoof in a month and they're already with us, they are doing stuff. We have specialists, we have people who can just jump in. For example, the cleanup artist, the colorist, without sounding biased. Women really have an eye for colors and they do well in colors. So we usually put them in that area and they do very, very well. So what we've done, we've been able to specialize. There's highly skilled, there's a middle skill, and there's a low skill. So everybody has a place to play. And why we've done that so that we can be scalable. So if we want to convert this 40 to 200 people, if the money is there, we can do it very easily. In 2 months, we'll set the pipeline, we'll get it done, and we'll deliver the projects.
Okay, all right. The question.
So my question is, I see that we are trying to do so much to bring animation to the general, to the grassroots now. What advice do you have for people that are just getting to understand what this stands for and how they want to start, for startups, when it comes to animation? The encouragement, what do you think they can put together to ensure that they stand the test of time?
Very, very, very nice question. Very deep. I think one of the things that we are losing in Nigeria is we are losing ethics. It's all about the money now, and it's not very good. There's a picture trending online where there was this building that was done. The blocks were positioned. I don't know if you've seen that picture. Very nice building, And they were like, Nigerian builders cannot build a house like that, because the skill set is gone. So the encouragement I would like to say is, look, we need to go back to the basics. Honestly, Nigeria needs to go back to the basics. We need to go back to the basics. I see a lot of people that want to be here, but you don't want to learn here. You need to learn here. You need to learn here, because when you learn here, you move fast to wherever you want to go. But the problem is that when you want to start from here, you now get the opportunity, and they now give you the opportunity for you now mess it up, and then you spiral back down. So my encouragement is, if you want to go into 2D, keep drawing. You have to keep drawing. You have to keep understanding your colors. You can make comic books, If that's your entry into animation, keep doing that. If it's 3D animation, find somewhere to apprentice, join a studio, learn your craft, do 1 year or 2 there, just to understand the basics, get involved, know what's going on, be part of the industry. We are getting to a point now that we are so scattered everywhere. We need to come together and bond, and we need to do something huge and big that will make a dent, in the international space, and people know that we exist and we are here to stay. Thank you.
Last question, last one. All right, okay, yeah.
Okay.
Use the mic. Turn it on. Oh.
Talking now. While you were making this beautiful animation, I just wanted to ask, were there any limitations? Because for something to actually come out this beautiful and successful, I knew that there's definitely going to be a lot of setbacks and roadblocks and hinges. So can you just talk to us about it?
The first challenge we faced was Nigeria. So I'm sure it's happening to you there too. So Nigeria happened to us, and Nigeria meant no power, went to burn fuel. Now, in my office now, we do diesel 20,000 every day. So imagine, and the problem, major challenge we had, we ran out of money. When we said $20,000, everybody clapped, back. That money finished like in a month or two. It wasn't enough. So we had to struggle to start doing other people's work, clients' work, just to. That's why we actually abandoned the project. That's why it took so long. If you had enough money, we would have finished this in like 2 months. It's not that big deal. It's something we can finish tomorrow. We have the structure and the pipeline, the people on ground. So money was a fundamental challenge. People wasn't really challenged because we had the people, but keeping those people became a fundamental challenge because you need to pay salaries every month. Because we pay salaries every month. So it was a real serious challenge that we had. Yes, another challenge we had was our international backers. Because we raised the money on Kickstarter, meaning Americans, everybody from the world had given us money. So we had to be accountable, and that's one other thing that we need to learn. We need to learn how to be accountable to people who have given us money. You see an investor invest in a company, the next thing, the guy buys a car, he buys this. We have to be accountable. We have to give account for how much we have spent, how we spent it, where it went, and all those things. So it was a challenge because we needed to speak their language and understand how to communicate with them. Even though at the end they were like really rushing us, we need to do more, blah, blah, we need to finish up and tidy up, because this is not actually the full thing we wanted to do before, but because the urgency was there, we needed to deliver this project. We just had to cut it to where we ended the film, hoping that we'll get more money to make some more. So those are the challenges we faced. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. This beautiful film. Okay, so if your film screened this morning, I've seen some filmmakers here already. Your film screened this morning. Please, can you raise your hands? If I see you, yeah. Any other person? Your film has screened. You weren't here, but it's screened. You know it has screened. Okay, all right. Sir, thank you very much. Yes. Okay. Ify, oh yeah, please come. At least I saw your film. Sorry. Okay, I should come to the middle. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, stay in the light, please.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Okay, so sitting with me is Ify Majoro, and her film screened this morning, and she's going to tell us about it. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ify Majoro. My film screened earlier, Omote Seru, which means she can. It's a short 3D animated film about female equality, where a family business is it's a shoemaking business run by so the family business is a shoemaking business, and there's this mentality that shoemakers are mostly male, which is from personal experience too, because there was a time there was this shoemaking workshop in my state. I'm from Delta State. So my brother called and said, the government is doing like a youth empowerment program. Which one would I want to do? And he said there was cake making, bead making, soap making, shoe making. And I said shoe making. And he was like, are you sure? I said, yes. So by the time I got into the class, I was the only female. And the teacher was like, you're in the wrong class. And I said, no, I'm here for shoemaking. And he said, okay. So by the time we started, it was really strange. There was this look from all the guys, because to be honest, I'm used to being the only female because I'm a female animator and it's a male-dominated industry, so it's something I'm used to. But there was this, let's take care of her, let's be sure she's not cutting herself, blah, 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 and everything. So that was actually what inspired the story, where it's a business run by a father. He has a son and a daughter, but he just has that feeling that the daughter is meant for the kitchen, house chores, and he never really gave her the chance to, work with them in the workshop. Little did he know that she was actually the key to taking the business to the next level. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I have a question that has been bothering me a long time, for the film. Sorry, I'm not very good with the pronunciation of the names.
It's Urobo. Omote Seruo.
Okay, Omote Seruo. Okay.
I just say she can.
She can. All right, fair. Okay. Okay. Now, this film was also for that competition I talked about. How did you manage that short amount of time to pull off a 3D animated film? With all of the elements because I see lots of props and things like that. So, how did you manage the time? And what were the challenges that you faced with it?
Okay, so I listened while Ayodele was talking and answering a question about you trying not to do everything yourself. I started out that way. I'm a 3D generalist, so I started out doing the modeling, texturing, rigging. So, but now I know better, and thank God I know better, because it's really more interesting having a team work with you. You end up with something way better than you imagined when you started. So for this particular one, because the notice was really short, and they wanted at least 5 minutes worth of animation, and most of the people I usually work with were occupied at the time, I had to do everything alone by myself, which, So when we see ourselves in situations like that, that's where being a generalist sort of pays off, because you are able to, but it's not recommended, it's not advisable, because at the end of the day, when you are done, you would need it. When you see the software, you feel like, oh God, I want to, you need a moment to just clear your head, space to breathe and all that. So, yeah, with this one, most of the things, okay, so another good thing is when you have the right foundation, you know how to find shortcuts. So there are some, like you said, there are a lot of props. There are free sites online where you can get free 3D models. So you don't necessarily have to model every single thing by yourself. And even the animation, sometimes too, you can also mix with both, keyframe, manually doing the animation by yourself, or going to mix it with motion capture animations that are online. There are also some sites that have free motion capture motions already that you can. So it's more of trying to mix and match everything just to make sure you are able to deliver the product at the right time. Yes. Thank you.
All right. Another question I have. Okay, I hope the questions are booting. Okay, you have a question. Okay, so you're beating me to it. Okay, all right, your question. Okay.
Hi.
Okay, my question is, the project is 3D animation.
Yes.
So I can still see components of 2D. So I just want to ask if that's the intention, or because we have seen movies like Into the Spider-Verse. So is that what you are trying to experiment with, or you just feel that, okay, you know what, let me just make this thing 2D in the finishing?
Okay.
All right.
What happened was, like I said, because the time was really short and I could see that there were a lot of mistakes. To be honest, I'm happy it showed before I got here because I have this thing, because I also do live action, once I finish a project, I can't watch it again. Like, when it's screening, I put my head down. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but, you know, yeah, I easily move past what I've done onto the next, you know. So when I finished and I watched it, I was like, wow, I was seeing a lot of mistakes. And I said, okay, what's the best thing? Let me try and find a way that will confuse some people so they don't, especially the experts in the industry, you know. So I researched, found like a 2D filter, because there's something with 2D that is like art. Even a mistake will look nice in your eye, you know. So that was the intention. And at the end of the day, when some people watched both, they actually preferred this one with the 2D filter, and I was like, okay, fine. But trust me, it didn't come out as good as I would have wanted it to, but there's room for improvement.
Okay. Yeah. And she won. She was one of the winners, so she was okay, yes, there's one more question.
Okay.
No more questions? Okay, he asked a question I wanted to ask. I wanted to ask that, why did you decide? Why did you decide on that? The 2D film. So the final decision was based on what people thought, or your own personal?
Not what, because like I said, people had not seen it. I think maybe just one person had seen it, and the person was okay with it. But personally, I wasn't okay with it because I knew that if I had more time, it would have been better. And I didn't want to put that out, you know, because, yeah, I remembered for your last project. So I didn't want that to be, because we ourselves, we know when we watch something, didn't this person see this mistake? Why did you know? So I didn't want that to be the case. And that was the best thing I could do at the time, to just try to reduce those kind of, yeah.
All right, thank you. Sorry, I asked that question because sometimes when everything is said and done, it comes to the decision making, you know, and it's hard, you know, having to decide the look, the final this, final that, you know, and sometimes as an artist, it now cuts between you and then what people think and all of that. So I think, yeah, at the end of the day, it boils down to you. You own the work. Yeah, thank you very much. Yes. All right. Okay. So we would have gone for a break now, but okay, we would have gone, but we're going straight to the panel session. You know, because honestly, we've been waiting for this. Like, you know, if it's hard, we have heard it at the beginning of the year. We'd have been waiting from the beginning of the year to this point. You know, you need to see the animation giants that are in this room just for this session. So going on a break and then putting on suspense, I don't think would be the best idea right now. You know, so we're going straight to the panel session, and sir, I'm handing over to you.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. Please give yourselves a round of applause. I'd like to use this opportunity to formally welcome you to the 7th season of Lagos International Festival of Animation. We've been doing this for 7 years, and it's getting better. We're happy you are here, and we appreciate your presence. The panel session we are about to do has to do with the investment in digital and creative enterprises. It is an initiative of the government. We hear a lot of the time that government is not doing enough, they can do better, but there are certain things that are being done, and we have to take full advantage of those things. One of those things, especially as it relates to those of us that are here today, is a special fund Investment in Digital and Creative Enterprises, the IDICE Fund. The big ogas from in fact, the national coordinator flew in from Abuja just for this, just so he can be there with us and talk about this. And we just have to make the most of this moment. I know they are very, very busy people. And I'm going to just very quickly introduce them and bring them onto the stage now so that we can get on with it. I know some of our people in the animation industry are itching to ask questions, to find out more. And I'm not going to say much about this because the experts are here. So let me begin. For this panel, we have two people from Bank of Industry. And this session will be moderated. Well, we are still going to have to keep you on stage, Esther, because you are going to moderate this session. Esther Kemi Gbadamosi, the foremost leading female stop motion animator in Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Honestly, we're so excited to have you and everybody. We've been looking forward to this. I guess that I've done a little bit of my homework, so my head is like, okay, so many things. And but first and foremost, we want to start from OGMB, Animation Nigeria. We are the ones that are calling, and all of that. Because we have things that it's in Animation Nigeria. And he knows what it's something that he's talked about and articulated so many times. And so it will not be for me that you're hearing it. It's someone who has really experienced the ups and downs, from different parts. And so I want to ask that regarding the animation industry and our current thoughts, about IDICE and the Bank of Industry and all of that, what would be our expectations? I just want to hit the ground running, like that. What would be what we're expecting? Why do we have this gathering? That kind of thing, sir. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mboasidam Johnson. I'm a trustee of Animation Nigeria. I'm also the CEO of Basement Animation, based in Lagos, Nigeria. I think for the IDICE or the Bank of Industry, I think the most important thing is, I'll say there are three major things. There's one, how we can, first of all, address the context of training and education within the sector. The industry is majorly self-taught, so to say, and when I say self-taught, people do their own individual training at their own level. Then at some certain level, when they get inducted into an animation studio, there's studio level training that is being done. And to be sincere, that particular model has always been frustrating for studio owners, and also frustrating for people that will probably say they want to get into animation. So that educational factor is something that we're expecting to be addressed, and at a large scale. To say that we just want training to be done will not be the total solution to the industry, because when we now have a volume of, or a crowd of people that have been trained, now how do those people get engaged in work? How do they get involved in the industry? The second thing will now be, what is the IDICE or the Bank of Industry doing support studios that have been existing over, some studios have been existing over a decade. Mine has been existing for the last 13 years, you know, and what are they do? What is the plan to try and support to help scale up that particular some studios in the industry, so that people that are adopted or are trained are adopted into studios, and that studio can actually adopt those new people. It seems just like what my colleague in the industry mentioned, that people can scale up to 200, but definitely there's a training factor that needs to be done, not just on one side, but also the studio also needs the support of IDICE or Bank of Industry to be able to do that scaling up. That will be the second phase. The third thing will be, I'll say how, because this leads to the final are scaling up and they are producing content. But now is how do you now monetize what is happening so it's sustainable for the industry, where studios that are producing content can actually sell content. Like we had a conversation some weeks back, and I had it with some colleagues in the industry, and not just how do we monetize our content, in the sense of how do we sell content internationally and all that. That exists already, but how do we actually monetize from within the continent? And it starts from the local channels. How do we actually monetize, which pulls out the most key thing, which is policy. You know, Ayodele mentioned it, where policy is attached to this funding and this backing of the IDICE, you know, that it triggers other things like are the local channels buying content from the producers, so that when a studio is or a producer is investing, or there's an investment made by IDICE or Bank of Industry. I've heard this previously, like Bank of Industry has invested previously in film industry, and I remember I came for a session probably 2019, just before the pandemic, and there was an issue of the Bank of Industry actually stopping funding for a certain time because of what has been invested previously. They had not seen a big chunk of results back from it, which was tied to really distribution itself, like, because distribution was like a key thing. If someone is funded and person doesn't have a distribution, it's just, you're just putting money to produce, but it's just going to sit on the shelf eventually. So beyond just say it's sitting on the shelf, which if we look at for the film industry at 2019 did not have as much screens to actually monetize, because there was so much of the flux of films that are coming into the industry. So beyond that, how do we engage local channels to buy content, especially kids content, whether it's adult content? How do we have partnerships a while back, and where we, as Animation Nigeria, put in a policy, submission of a policy to increase the percentage of local content being showed on TV, which is supposed to enable, like, that's what the government is supposed to do. We might not get direct money, but if we have people within the country that is willing to invest, how are policies just set in place just to make sure that there's a return of investment? And sometimes it starts from local content within the country, because when some of us travel, you know, to try to sell our content, and there's always that conversation of how are you making sales within your country, and how can you get funding within your country? Do you have broadcasters that are putting money into your content, and when you don't have that back from home, that means you're not getting support from home. Then why should you get support from another country? So I'll say those three factors are very key, and he hits on the expectation of now there's some kind of funding towards the creative industry, specifically towards the animation industry. These key things need to be addressed in the sense of training, scaling up existing studios that have good track record, and also finally policies that can enable sales locally and trigger other partnerships that are international, which is also in the context of co-production.
Thank you very much, sir. Okay, so sir, Mr. Promise, I know that you have been in the Bank of Industry for about 18 years, and so this is another
countries and cinemas. But cinemas are never enough. Because if you look at South Korea, for every 18,000 population, you have one cinema, right? If you have 200 screens in Nigeria, for instance, and these young guys decide to do film, by the time they put the film across the 200 cinemas, you know what, they can recover the investment. So when he was talking about suspending Nollyphone, because of the distribution slack, right? He's actually he's honest about it. Because we suspended Nollyphone because we're not getting back our investment. And no financial institution want to invest, right, without getting back the investment. Because it's a revolving fund. I get the fund, I give you a fund, you pay back, I give to this person. So it has to revolve. So if it gets trapped with you, this other person cannot get it. So we decided to suspend Nollyphone. Nollyphone is the first intervention fund in the industry, but it was BOI's initiative. So what we did was, because we looked at the sector, we said people who play in this sector don't have the capacity for collateral. Because financial intervention requires collateral, right? Except you're looking at equity investment, where people can actually put in fund without asking for collateral. So what we did was, okay, you know what, let's even design a program called From Nollywood. We took out the wood and we brought in the fund. Okay, it became Nollyfund. So we started giving out money without collateral. We were able to fund 25 films, all right? Some became blockbuster, but unfortunately, the distribution platform, which is the cinemas, were not adequate. Then there was, we didn't have the likes of the Netflix, the Amazon, and so on and so forth. So we depended absolutely on cinema, and the cinemas were not adequate to actually turn this fund, except for the ones you call the outliers, actually, who were able to do a lot in the cinema. But luckily, 2 years after we suspended the Nollyfund program, we started seeing the likes of the streaming platforms, the Netflix, and in fact, when we suspected that if we allow all the films to go to cinema, they might fail, okay, we advised them to just put a hold on distribution. So by the time Netflix came out, they went back to distribution. And that's why the likes of Queen Amina could sell for $350,000. You know, today we have films that are selling for $1 million, right? Look at the Jado Siberi, the Grill, the Gangs of Lagos, the Sugar Rush, the Isoken, they're all selling off. In fact, today the Netflix could actually enter into a contract, 5-year contract with some of our producers right now. In fact, one was my office yesterday. She's been given a contract of $1.2 million by Netflix. But it might interest you guys to also know that animated content is priced higher than even our content. So it's an opportunity for you guys to actually break through. You know, so it's a whole lot of opportunities actually. But from 2011 that we started, it has not been easy, but the industry is more viable. So at that point in time, what we decided to do was to organize capacity building program across the 6 geopolitical zones. You know, teaching them how they can also, you know, run, you know, structured businesses alongside their creativity. And today, you know, in fairness to them, if any creative person enters the office, the first thing is put on your table is budgets. It's actually helping them. But that's also a step to it. Now, when you anticipate, right, whether from the equity side or from the bank side, you need to begin to build structure around your business. And what is structure? Record keeping, actually. I was talking to a banker, called me this morning. I said, I'm sorry, I'm about to give you bad news. I said, what bad news? He said, the guy that you introduced to us has fantastic business, but unfortunately his financials are weak. We can deal. Now, when I called the guy, I said, how come your bank statement? He said, sorry, I've been doing everything my best now. You understand? But then I claimed that it was a fantastic business. Then there's one, too, I'm also talking to another bank got to me, right, to say that they've looked at the guy, bank statement, right, the company hasn't done much. But this is a company that has existed for 8 years. And then when you talk to people, they say they run away from taxes, right? Even your tax payments is also a credit. It's a plus, right? It also helps you improve your credit rating. But what I'm trying to say basically is that it's important, if you're going to be dealing with ABC Limited, you know you want to set up an enterprise structure, then allow everything to flow in and out of the enterprise structure, because record keeping is quite critical. But I have good news for you, all right? Even when Mr. Muyo was asking people to hold me down, I was excited because I know I have the IT guy here. So if you're looking for the right person to hold, you're going to hold him too. However, we are here for you. You know, BOI is a friend of the industry, and we are ready to support you. You know, in cash and kind in terms of capacity building and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. So we've heard from BOI. BOI is the implementing organization. Now, the organization that is cooking the IDIs, that's put everything in place for us to be able to benefit, because I know that to run any program in Nigeria, you know, the Nigerian factor makes it even more challenging because of all of the intricacies, you know, involved. So, sir, we would like you to tell us about the IDIs program, you know, how...
Former Vice President, Yemi Oshibajo. So I had gone to Silicon Valley and Hollywood. I was in the news at the time. And one of the key feedback that we got from investors in both Hollywood and Silicon Valley, we went to private sector players. We had Two-Face with us on that trip. We had Mo Abudu with us on the trip. So we went with Nigerian investors, Nigerian players, and the creatives and the creative ecosystem. And one of the core feedback we got was, where is the government's skin in the game? At the time, the only thing that the government had to show in any way was really the work that the Bank of Industry had started to do, engaging with the ecosystems at the time. So there was not a lot to show at the time. So we had come back and we had engaged with the African Development Bank on what we could really do to support this space. And so at the time, the bank, that's the African Development Bank, had two interventions. They were doing one for Cote d'Ivoire and one for Rwanda of $100 million each. And I remember I had said to the former VP at the time that, I had a conversation with a lady called Uyoyo, who works with AFDB, she's Nigerian. And this is the feedback I got. And he told me, well, if Rwanda is doing 100 million, Nigeria should do 500 million. And I remember he said Rwanda is the size of Kwara. So we began those engagements. And we've gone on a 5-year journey. Now, to get funding with government requires a lot of work and a lot of documentation, a lot of exchanges, a lot of activities that have to happen. And why you heard a lot about IDIs is because part of that process involves stakeholder engagement. We're very careful to be sure that what we are designing for IDIs is not just another government program, but it's something that touches the nerve and is able to do the work that it is intended to do. And that's why when I listened to you earlier, sir, everything you've stated is as if you just hit the right point. So the IDIs program will support Nigeria's tech and creative ecosystem across 3 core components, which are clearly aligned with the points that you noted. The first is on talent. How do we build a sustainable talent pipeline? Strongly behind the program, and that is the Vice President literally gave marching orders for us to get moving. So to break it down, the program is being financed by 4 core financiers. So I'll break this financing down before I go down to the timelines that you have mentioned. By 4 core financiers. One is the African Development Bank. The second is the French Development Agency. The third is the Islamic Development Bank. And the fourth is the Bank of Industry. So for these core financiers, the only fund that we can say today we're ready to go is the Bank of Industry, because that is the Nigerian federal government, that is Nigerian money, right? It's just about designing the products and getting it out. For the other financiers, there are a lot of processes that you have to go through. Now, in the walk up to this stage, we had about 2.5 years delay because of COVID. Because all these other 3 financiers during the COVID period suspended all interventions that were not COVID related. So at the time, all interventions of these DFIs, development finance institutions, was focused on budgetary support for countries to deal with the impacts of COVID. So we lost about 2.5 years, and then we had to restart the process. And today, the Minister of Finance has been on each of these financiers. We're almost through with the process with the African Development Bank and the French Development Agency. With the Islamic Development Bank, there's still a couple of hoops that they need to jump through within their own legal system. But the Vice President has mandated everybody to get every box ticked, so that by the end of this year, we're able to be sure that this program is ready to go, and we're able to start to implement the program. So that's for expectations management, right? Secondly, on the timelines, as part of the process of engaging with the private sector, the former vice president had done an engagement with the president of the African Development Bank in March, which was more symbolic sort of launch, just to let the ecosystem know that this program is coming and these are the ways in which you can benefit from it. But the actual program launch for implementation will be done by Mr. President, depending, of course, on his own timelines, which will be determined by his engagement with Vice President Kashim Shettima. But I'm sure all that will be just is more for information. What really matters is what we can do with this program and what can be achieved with this program. And I'll just delve into the questions to just provide a bit more context about those core issues. So he has talked about how we can address training and education in the animation industry, and about how this industry is largely self-taught. Nigerians to one of the EDs in the Nigerian bank sometime last year, and he told me that within the space of a month, they lost the whole IT department. In the space of 1 month, to Japan, Jan, Australia, all over the place. Who run one. Beyond that, we then to do to retain what is available on IDICE, help you to make this happen. So that's really what it is. For us, we just want to help you to make this happen and provide those opportunities. The second is the training to jobs, right? How do you provide those opportunities? So it's the same thing. So for every person that is trained, where are the jobs, where are the opportunities for this person? Very handy and will be very useful. Again, this program doesn't really have anything defined on its own. It is looking at what you're already doing, it's looking at what you already have defined and how take and how we can support the work that you already do. The third is how to help the industry to monetize contents, particularly locally. So how does the industry really, I know what to do in IDICE is to do mini studios. And these mini studios monetize your content, and how is this going to work? I remember a trip that I had to Finland, and speaking to someone, so we never build for Finland. We always build for exports because we don't have. What's the strategy? Is the strategy to export while building a local pipeline for actually getting funding and monetizing? Or is the strategy to do both together? Or is the strategy, like you had mentioned, to focus on building local capacity, monetizing locally, and then there will be different people trying different things. So how can the IDICE program support you to do these things? And for buying local content and policies around that, I think this is a part that the policy pillar of the IDICE can support. Agencies. One of the beauties of our is that the steering committee for the program is headed by the vice president himself. So the program has support from the highest level of government. So it means there is nothing you need. So you have to come up with those things, and then we can work together to look at how we can find those solutions. Now I'll just quickly speak about those three components. On the talent component, we're looking to support around basic, intermediate, and advanced skills. So who are those within this space that are already doing things within this education space in animation? And how can we support you to be able to train more people, to be able to churn out more talent? What are the key issues that you're facing? The enterprise support organizations, the studios who are already working, what are the core issues that you're facing? How can we support you, keep the lights on, basically? While I think the Ajaka creator was talking about staying alive, right? What do we need to do to help you to stay alive? One thing I need to mention is a national expansion. Who is going to take the risks? Now, I'll tell you this for free. Everywhere we speak about IDICE, we get the warning, don't take all the money to Lagos. Don't take all the money to Lagos. So there is the notion already that everything comes to Lagos. So you guys have to start thinking of how you're going to reach out, how you're going to leverage talent in other skills to those places and how we can support you to expand and reach outside the core nerve center of Lagos. Committed, $45 million from the Bank of Industry, $170 million from the French African Development Bank, $116 million from the French Development Agency, $70 million from the Islamic Development Bank. Comes to a total of about $401 million. The balance is from the private sector. That's another thing about how we've designed the IDICE program in a way that you must bring value, right? So that there is no big man somewhere that says to me, oh, give my brother this money. He should go and bring his own too. So you have to match it, right? So if you're already putting money in Ajaka, then you have value to bring, then I can match your money, right? So it makes a lot more sense, and that way we're able to reduce the political interference on the program, which is a very critical part of ensuring that this program does not become another government distribution, right? Where we're just distributing funding and we're not getting the value for it. Right. So this access to finance pillar, there are two buckets. There is the equity bucket of it. Now, there will be a tech fund which will invest in technology startups. And the fund managers for that will have to match every penny of IDICE that they put into a project. They have to match it with a penny of theirs. The creative sector fund. So for every dollar of IDICE that is put into a creative project for equity, you have to match it with a dollar of yours. So where you raise that dollar, either you raise grants from international development partners, or it's your own money, or it's an investment from a commercial bank, or your uncle's money. I mean, for us, you just have to be able to match that money that is going into that product. Like I said, it's just our way of ensuring that we're giving money to people who really want to do the job, right? The third is the fund of funds. Now, the fund of funds is more flexible, and I'll tell you why. If we have to follow strictly the terms of the tech fund and the creative fund, all of that money will come to Lagos. Maybe a bit in Abuja, maybe Kaduna, maybe Port Harcourt, right, and maybe Kano. But if you really want to take a shot and take a chance in other places, you will have to have some more flexibility. So that's why we have the fund of funds. Now, the fund of funds will invest in smaller funds. So 3 people in this room can decide to say together, for example, together with IDICE, want to do a $2 million fund. We're going to bring $1 million, you're going to bring $1 million. So that way we're able to support smaller funds and not just the big players. We're able to support state governments. So if you're close to your state governor, you can say to him, oh, can you do a joint fund of $2 million with IDICE program, where we do a program in your state that is investing in startups in the creative sector in your state, or in the tech sector in your state. So that kind of flexibility, industry-related flexibility, state-related flexibility, and just ensuring that we're able to have the right national spread and to be able to impact places beyond Lagos and Abuja when we're doing these investments. So that's why we have the fund of funds. The second bucket of funds for the access to finance is the debt fund, where we have BOI's $45 million. So with all the work BOI has done in this space, they are committing an additional $45 million for this program. So, and I'm sure you listened to Mr. Promise, this is something they have a lot of experience in. So all our conditions, all the terms and everything that will make it easy for you to access those funds will be put into consideration. The second bucket is $65 million from the Islamic Development Bank. Now, this is core Islamic finance. So it has its own, so you'll have to do a bit of reading on how Islamic finance works to be able to understand how to get access to this funding. So it has its own restrictions, no alcohol, and all those things that are just not in line with the Sharia rules. But this is $65 million, which fits perfectly in the animation industry. I didn't see any alcohol in Ajaka, for example. But I mean, there will be Islamic finance experts. We are being advised already by the top Islamic finance expert within the Bank of Industry, Mr. Shekarau, who is advising us on how to ensure that we make this money available and flexible enough for the ecosystem that we take advantage of. But there will be $65 million of that fund available. And then the last pillar, of course, is the policy pillar, which I've spoken about. It's all about working together. How do we work with you to look at the core policy issues and to drive the core policy issues? For example, something that came to my mind while you were speaking was the DSTV, for example. Why is there no animation channel just focused on local content? Yeah. And you see, it's about policy. You can get the FCCPC, the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Council, to make them do this. It doesn't cost them anything. They'll just have to pay for the content, right? And I mean, what then is the advantage for them? They have to go and speak to Indomie and the people who make Pampers and whatever, or whatever the channels are, the company products are that will be willing to advertise on that sort of channel. It's a new revenue stream for them. So it's one of the things that we need to think about, and we can work with you on looking at these policies, sitting the right people in the room. For example, if this is a very key, basic one, we can sit DSTV in the room with the vice president. Let them come and tell him why they cannot do it. Yeah, it's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. So I think beyond the funding, this program gives you an opportunity of having the Vice President of the Federal Republic on the program himself. So it means you can sit anybody down and get them to do what needs to be done to move this country forward on this program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Well, that's the heavy stuff. It has generated a lot of questions. Okay, MB, please take note of the questions he raised, because I'm coming back to you. Sir, my question is this. You heard what he said. Now, I've checked a bit about Trace, and I've seen that you guys have been able to, especially for music, the content that's created in our space, being able to find expression more and more than we've had before. Now, I believe that with a program like iDice, it will give opportunities for young people that are older than young people, to be able to, produce content. In what way do you think Trace can position itself, for something like this? Yeah.
Okay. My name is Damola Adeniji. I'm the senior content strategist at Trace West Africa. So how Trace can support this or part of this is actually part of our strategy, investing in this creative space. We've noticed that this space is quite big. Everybody's doing it now. So this is the time to invest. So how we could come out. So I know when everybody hears Trace, the first thing is music. Sure, we're predominantly music. But we also do a lot of things around content. Like now, our global office, we invested in a studio in South Africa where we churn out content, we produce content for Netflix. So these are the kind of things we do. So concerning how we could partner with iDice now, so you all are, how do I say, closer to these people? Because in the sense that we have an animator will chop. So when we do these trainings, we do all these things. Of course, we're already familiar with the community. We're basically creating that ecosystem, that animation ecosystem that everybody knows is easier access to people. So when we are doing these things, then we now say, oh, we've been coming to these trainings, we've learned a lot of these. These are the projects we had. So then we could partner with these investors to secure funding for these projects so that everybody they can get return on investment on this. So, and even distribution.
My thoughts are also thinking towards the direction of, I've listened to the iDice program, and there's a part that requires that we need to get the money back. There has to be a return on investment.
Sure.
So I'm thinking that a Trace TV, for example, could also be part of that return on investment model, where we can create the content with funds. Because the truth is that when we collect money and we cannot make the money back, then the circle that he talked about will not exist. So how can Trace position itself, to be that one of those expressions that can help us get the funds back?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're investing funds in locally here, right, I know you're looking at getting return on investment locally, but I think Trace, we will do majorly international. So it's like you invest in a movie, or let's say you invest in an animation movie, we can distribute that internationally. That's the position we are in. Because, I mean, we have distributed some movies to Netflix, Amazon, and we've gotten money for these. People have paid for these. Even locally, when we work with telcos, when they started their own platforms, Trace was distributing. We had a whole network of creators, we are the aggregators distributing to these platforms. So this is a field that we're actually very engaged in. So this is how we are positioned ourselves.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes. Again, we're back to you. You know, now, because I still have those questions, but I want you to be able to touch on some of the things, because you talked about the connection. It's a real, it's a gap. You know, how from studio, you know, the training and the talents, you know, how, because I see that also, and I'm concerned about that, sir, you know, at this point that we will still need our inputs would have to inform the strategy, because the next thing to ask, and it borders on from BOI to you, is that the funds, how will we be able to access it? But I can't ask that question if this question is not answered. As regards how you would help us will be determined by us. Also, how we will be supported, because I'm hearing that it will be dependent on how we give room for support. For example, when I look at the Nolly Fund, for example, you know, it's clear Nollywood needs money. And so that's why it came in the name of the fund. And so when they get the fund, they make the film. It's straightforward. Now, but in the creative sector, then they were trying to define, you know, what exactly we need, you know, to get that. So, Ogembe, I want you to probably speak to that, you know, in terms of defining what exactly we need, you know, or how we intend to communicate that, because somehow we need to be able to ensure that there are bridges and there's no break in communication, us the creatives and you the managers of the funds that are supposed to help us.
Okay. I think what he mentioned was majorly they're not going to come up with a model without our contribution. We know where it pinches on the shoes. In the past, we've had things happen previously and still presently happening where there are programs and trainings and stuff that has been done, and at the end of the day, people are reaching out to my studio to take in people for internship, and it doesn't make any sense because you didn't have this conversation with me in the first place. So you are doing a program to train people, but there was no conversation with us to adopt those people. So I think what they're trying to say is that they want to have those conversations with us from the beginning and know exactly how to structure it. To be fair, we had a session with some people from Bank of Industry, some people from the AFD, and we had like a 2-day session where we had this long conversation with different players in the industry, from the university to the studio owners, and eventually it was just for us to understand how the structure of how our business works, because that's the end of everything. We want to get that money back to reinvest, and not to approach it like the previous. Equipment was one of the key things that they needed, so there was that fund for equipment from the Bank of Industry to get equipment to produce quality content, and that might be the only thing that is required for our own industry. So I feel like those conversations are necessary, where we can help define and even make suggestions towards policy. Like I mentioned something that we had a conversation with the NBC, someone from the NBC, and it was around the same policies, which they are trying to implement a policy that worked for the music industry, where there was a policy set for the broadcasters and radio stations to play a certain percentage of local music than international music. I remember there was a time you could go for parties, everything was international music. Then all of a sudden, it just switched overnight. It was now an 80-20%. But that was a policy that enabled so many things: investments, more creators. It forced the broadcaster, the radio stations to find more music to play. You didn't want to only play one song the whole day. So I think those are the conversations that are necessary for us to really define what you're trying to implement, and we can give those suggestions based on experience within the industry and things that can enable us. In the sense, like now presently, we have a flux of training that is happening in the industry, and it's not going to solve the problem because nobody's having conversations with the studio owners. So we're training. There's a lot of training that is going on in our industry. There's just been this big focus of training, but if we look at the studio owners that are here, nobody has been in with these organizations because you're not creating the talents that we need to employ. So I run a 2D animation studio. He runs a 2D animation / expanding to 3D. If you're not asking him what are his needs, and you're training 1,000 people and 6,000 people, I'm like, my studio can't take 10,000 people now. So where are we going to fit all these people? Then, like you said, the training is being focused in Lagos again. You know, too much of crowd in Lagos with few studios. You know, how do they expand those trainings outside where we know that this is happening in different parts and they spread out that 1,000 people? And how do they find the other existing studios in Abuja, in Port Harcourt, in Kaduna? So that's one thing that our association has always tried to incorporate, that we are always extending beyond Lagos. We had an event in Abuja for Abuja creators with the French embassy to highlight creators there, to highlight and get the community together. When we have programs that we're doing that we take people to the market, we have people from Port Harcourt, people from Kanu that come in because we know that it's like a ripple effect. You bring someone from Kanu that is a creator, he highlights it in his community and everybody comes around together to connect. So I think those conversations are necessary so that we can really define what will be needed for the studios, for the creators, and also policies that can help direct. From experience, the reason why I kept on mentioning local distribution is because I don't want our system to be dependent on the international markets, where we are literally just gradually getting into the international market. Even we can use the film industry as a perfect example. We just got our first Oscar selection because of a Nigerian film, which is a big win. But how long has the film industry been existing before we get highlighted there and someone can now finally make $200 million from it? So how do we monetize? And the reason why I'm saying this is because of the last markets I attended, which is MIPCOM, and the market is so focused on Asia now. But if we look at 10 years ago, nobody cared about Asia. Nobody cared about China content. Nobody cared about sitcoms from Asia. Nobody cared about even the existing big manga and anime. But what they did was that they went back and they built their local markets and they make their revenue from their local market first. You know, and that is sustainable for return on investment first, you know, and before we start thinking about the international market. So I'm looking at it that before we get stuck depending on international market to distribute and they define and determine what we earn from what we've distributed, why don't we find how we can actually make a local market existing, which what I'm saying is not new. It has happened to the music industry. There was a local consumption of Afrobeats before it became what it is today. So it's just looking at that same policies, looking at policies that can actually trigger that, so that a new producer or creator that steps out of a training program can go out, create content, but there's some means of actually distributing that content to make back an investment. And eventually, when the person makes an approach to the Bank of Industry to raise probably 50 million naira, there's already a track record where he invested 50,000, he made 250,000. His track record of he invested 500,000 with friends and family investment and made 2.5 million. There's that track record already because there's already an existing policy that enables that. When he creates something little, he doesn't just throw it on YouTube and hope it will go viral. but there's actually a medium for him to create a 5 minutes content, and there's a Wazobia to buy it off his hand. You know, there's someone else there's a small local channel, because it's dubbed in Yoruba, you know, the states to buy it off his hand, and he now sees return on investment. So that's my perspective when I was saying local content. Like, if we start from here, then it can translate to other
things. Thank you very much. Wow. Okay, sir. The IDA is a fantastic project. It has all the trappings. My concern is access. I feel very strongly that the strategic approach towards it will be built over time, will continue to be built even as the program is being implemented. Because the truth is that I'm not sure you'll be able to get the perfect model, would go like straight off. You know, it will be over time, just like with the Nolly Fund. You know, at some point you had to pause because you saw that it probably was going a bit ahead of its time. You know, that time. So that stands here is that the program has to start. It has to launch. Money has to enter people's hands. Are you with me? Yes, money has to enter people's hands. Now, my thoughts is, from the little understanding, you know, because honestly, you know, and so there needs to be a way that we can meet somewhere. There needs to be a way that the program can be, and in fact, if Lagos people are going to have that, I feel the interiors, you know, how they would meet up. I'm sure there would have to be some real, you know, leverage for them to be able to access. So, for access, I know that all the questions cannot be answered now, but in what way? Because I know that the program is majorly targeted directly at the young people, you know, but we should also recognize that it's not the young people that own the studios. Most of the big studios, most of the people, they are already a bit above the age, this and all of that. Now, how will the studios, that's the industry stakeholders, be able to access not just the funds, but in what ways and what leveraging? Well, let me just use the word leveraging. What are you putting to this program that would make it easy for people to access it? That's the question. It's based from BOI perspective, sir.
Yes, thank you for your perspective. You know, let me just talk from was not a fund that was just targeted to content producers. What we did was some sort of ring fencing. Right, we brought in the distributor and the content providers. All right, we formed them into a coalition for them to operate. Now, what am I trying to say? If you're a content producer and your film was actually screened or reviewed, because we've also put together some sort of advice. I'm not a movie critic. If I see movies, as I sleep in the process of watching. But when you see good film, you will know good film, right? But there are people who understand the technicalities of those films. So what we did was to constitute a set of advisors, about 4 from the industry. One who is an expert in distribution, contents, you know, so on and so forth. And then even the studio, the likes of the Kingsley Logoro, the Kenok, well, so brought them to. So what happens is that if your film comes to us, right, we send your film to them, they see, look at the film, and they'll tell you if that film is going to sell or not, going by the cast and the crew review. So those are the technicalities that we actually bring in, you know, to the table. Now, after that clearance, it comes to us, you know, we're now subjected to credit review. But most of the film that actually they cleared actually went to the process of a credit appraisal. That was how we were able to arrive at those films that you saw. But the interesting thing is that, right, once your film is cleared, you have to choose the studio guys you're going to work with. You either choose a Kingsley Logoro or you choose a Kudla Fulayo. So we had like 4 top studio. But before we brought the studios into the scheme, what we did was to upgrade their studio to international standard. Because what we asked them was to say, if you have to, what you need to be able to compete with somebody in Canada or with a studio in Canada, right? Don't tell us one of these random studios. Tell us one of the biggest studio or one of the best studio in America. What sort of equipment do they have? And that you will need to have. And they brought a list, and we funded them. Now, we funded them without collateral. You know why? Because we believe that by the time the content is sold, they'll be able to pay them out. So if you're going to be doing your production, because they bring in the equipment, and then your post-production too, of course, you're going to be paying. So somehow, some of them were able to pay out their loan using the proceeds from the content producers. You understand that arrangement now? And then for the distributor, you could choose a Film One, for instance, to be your distributor, or you could choose a Silverbird, okay, at the time, or you choose a Genesis, or you choose a Viva. So we funded those cinemas. Okay, so those cinemas were like a marketplace for them. So you have the content, you have the studio, and then you have the markets. But unfortunately, the markets, which are the cinemas, were not that good enough. And that's why we need more cinemas. Despite the fact that streaming platform is growing, we also need cinemas. But there has been some arguments, some quarters, telling you that, oh, now that we have streaming platform, cinemas are going to die. That is not true. Even in Europe today, cinemas are still growing. Because what it does is to expand your income generation prospects, right? You are just, in fact, today, if Netflix is going to price your film higher, right, they look at the boost it has generated from the cinema. That's why I see some people go to the cinema first. By the time it makes a lot of noise in cinema, Netflix calls you and says, come, let's discuss. So it impacts your pricing. That does not also remove the fact that some people go straight to Netflix or Amazon. But cinema is also there because sometimes when you even produce what they call the Netflix original or Amazon original, which means you're going to surrender your intellectual property to them for 5 years. After 5 years, the likes of Netflix gives you back your film. You can still take it to the cinema if you like, okay? So we are looking at that kind of integration. So when you talk about studio, we could upgrade your studio. Then, that was before 2015, most content producers were taking their films to Canada to go and edit. Today, most films are edited in Nigeria, right? Because the studios have been upgraded. Because that's another aspect. For me, it's like the lounge, or it's like what's it called? What gives you access to international market? Because these guys have criteria, right? So you need a studio that's going to improve on the picture quality, your sound quality, even sound can take you up. So these guys already have metrics, right? That can actually, pass your film to be on their platform. So look at the films on Amazon, also look at the films on what's called Netflix. You see their picture quality, you see the sound, you see the cast, and so on and so forth. So you need to understand that. Now, talking about capacity building, there are even schools around, like the Bonnie School, like the Del York. Del York is trying to do something with Lagos State government called the Film City. It's going to be massive because what they've decided to do there is like a value chain, creative industry value chain, a hub where you can actually go. You see script writers, you see screeners, you see even those, you can even produce your film there, right? Edit the film, sell your film, and I think we have, I think that was modeled after one of these biggest film centers in Canada, where if you're going to shoot even films that involve you bringing a helicopter, they have a space for it. So we need this kind of infrastructure to be able to do that, all right? Like what is happening in the music space right now. You see most of the Afrobeat guys selling out, right now. And we are shouting here, oh, they sold up this, sold up that. Why are those things not happening in Nigeria? We're losing money. What we call arena in Nigeria is a coital, but that's not arena. It's because they said when the preferable is not available, the available becomes the preferable. But that is far from it. Now, when you begin to have arena, you can actually make so much money because those in South Africa will come here. If you observe, some of our musicians, some of our big-time artists, if they are not performing in Europe where they have big arena, they're performing in South Africa where you have the Sun Arena, which is just 10,000 capacity, right? But today, there's an arena that has been built just behind the Palms. That is going to be a purpose-built arena. If you have that kind of arena, you're going to be attracting market from outside. Because even while we talk about local market, you also have to have, you're going to have a site in the international market. Yes, it's good to do local testing, but there's globalization. You need also the dollars to show up the dollars here too. Because what is not accredited outside too, they will still call you a local champion in actual sense. Who says animation is not selling outside? I know I may not mention them, but there's one of your colleagues in the industry who is big in the animation, right? Most of the content that he produces are being sold outside. But unfortunately, is that when he sells it off, it's like sell it off without his tag. That's why he did. It was one of the investment forums that he attended that some investors found his product interesting and decided to invest. Today, some of this animated content, like when he was telling you about that you need to get yourself, position yourself You understand? It's like a bride or pretty lady who wants to get married, right? You can't dress shabbily. Okay, you need to position yourself. That's exactly what he's saying. So you have that value proposition. Because what people invest in, even from the equity aspect of it or from the debt, is your value proposition. Bankers don't generate ideas. Ideas come from that. So if you want us to model out, what bankers do is to look at your value proposition and they structure a product that fits into it. That's exactly what he's saying. So if you look at the animation industry, what are the peculiarities? Right? I'm not an animator, and he's also, I'm not sure he wants to learn that now, or I want to learn that now. Or you can as well enjoy it. So it's you for you. Thank God you have an association, very strong association, unlike what we see in the different kind of guilds. But within the animation space, you guys are united. So you have to sit back. Even talking about training, you have to also sit back to design the kind of training you need. Because even some of us, right, when we're starting up this Nolly Fountain or movie thing, someone started watching films, someone started interacting, stakeholders engagement, to the extent that today I can tell you who the actor that is the highest fee. But I have to follow the industry. So if you give me a budget, I'll be able to look at your budget. Like I was telling one of them who wanted something close to $1 billion. I said, no, these 3 guys cannot earn this amount. You know, and he was asking me, how did you get to know how much to pay? I can tell you how much I am the ends. So those things are some of the things you get. But you are not a professional to the core, but you just have to have some little ideas. So you people need to sit down, look at the kind of training that you want to structure. Now capacity building is one of the components in the IDA is, okay? IDA is not going to design the curriculum. The curriculum has to come from you guys, right? Yes, for we to be able to form, okay? So development within an industry or ecosystem is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And little steps will take you there, just like what happened in the music sector right now. Some are not even going to the banks anymore, right? The movie guys are going to the bank. And the same thing is happening in the movie industry. They are actually catching up. If you look at Netflix, they can't do without Africa. African contents. Even most of the films, sometimes you'll be surprised that the top 5 in the chart, Netflix chart, is African films, right? Look at the Gangs of Lagos. Look at Filmmaking was in the top 3 chart for more than 1 month. And as I speak to you right now, Netflix has booked what they call the sequel. Even the guy had not even started producing it right now, but they said, see, if you're going to produce a sequel, don't give to anybody. It's an agreement. Don't give to any platform. This is how our films can get made. And the same thing can happen in the animation space. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Wow. So, for this strategy at which we are going to be able to, would it be proposals? Would it be us like having the initiative to be the one that would reach out to you, or you would reach out to us and ask us, oh, fill this form online, click this link and fill this, and then, because it's you could approach it like, okay, I can see like 6, 7 studios, that's what we feel that is okay, that we will use, and then you would just do your selection process and send them, messages. Or would it be the studios that would reach out? I don't know, so that's probably what my question is around.
You have a way of still finding. I thought when my guy finished everything, there's nothing else to ask. You have a way of still finding something. So, yes, very good question, actually. So I think there are. So this time about self, it doesn't put me in trouble because I don't want to be quoted. But there are 2 principal ways. But before I speak of those 2 principal ways, I think we will of course be leveraging now. There's a lot of knowledge, a lot of information in BOI already that we're going to be leveraging on. And you had mentioned that, there are times you think that the requirements of BOI are a little bit too stiff. So the IDICE program is a lot more flexible. Now the IDICE program is designed to take the kind of risks that a BOI will naturally not take, right? So the IDICE program is designed to take, because, who is going to take the risk if it's not the government? If there is any institution that has the capacity to take on risks at scale in any country, it is the government. Now, when the government takes those risks and has proof of concepts, then you can start to get private investments into the space, and that's why you have the likes of Netflix putting their money into Nigerian film now, because a BOI took those initial risks. But we must understand that the real core large-scale interventions will end up being this Nigerian fund for animation. But Dangote is not going to take that risk. But if IDIS has taken the risk and we have pockets of proof. Now, every day we hear news of Nigeria's tech sector has raised this $1 billion in 2021, then they raised this in 2022. It's because people have seen stories of success. And so there are a lot more private sector investors who are willing to put in their funding. So it's the same model. Now, for access, there are going to be two core models. So by January, we should start a process of gap assessments, which will be reaching out to all of you to really understand what those key gaps are and will help us in defining and designing as we go along. Then after that process, there will be different processes of expressions of interest. Now, the IDIS program is going to be driven by the African Development Bank's procurement policy guidelines, and it's available online. So you can check for the AFDB procurement policy guidelines. So largely, everything we do will be driven by that guideline. So that's one of the options. And it goes through a process of expressions of interest, where based on our conversations with you, you've told us these are the gaps. We will then put out expressions of interest to fill those gaps. Then, if there are 10 studios here who then come to us to say, you know, we can provide that based on what we've been doing. It's very critical. What you've been doing is very important. The other one is not going to go to anybody who is not doing anything, by the grace of God. Right? So you must have been doing something and we must see it. Right? So what have you been doing? Then so if you were doing one, it was taking you 6 months to do Ashaka, for example, Ajaka. I keep mixing it. Don't worry, I'll go and watch it online. You know, what do we need to do to support you to go from 40 talents, a talent pool of 40 to 200? Now, to move from doing just Ajaka in 6 months to doing it in 1 month and then being able to do 12 in the space of a year. And then that then gets you funded to be able to now say, we're going to a series, we're going to Netflix, or we're going to Amazon Prime to put up this series. Then, in another 3 years, you've even forgotten about IDIS. You're collecting millions of dollars from Prime, and from Netflix, and from Roku TV. Now, that's the idea of how we expect this to work, right? So what have you done, and how can we then support? And this process will be strictly monitored by the African Development Bank itself, to ensure that there is no political interference, to ensure that we're giving these funds to the people that really need it. The government has designed this program in a way that it has tied its own hands, and was very deliberate, to ensure that we're getting to the bottom and to the people that really need this funding and this support. Now, the second is the one where I'm saying, I hope I don't put myself in trouble, because this is going to be very rare, right? And to get that, there has to be a certain level of conviction that we have to convince the African Development Bank itself to allow us to be able to do that. Which is, if 10 studios were to come together to say that, look, at the end of the day, it's only the 10 of us anyway. So instead of going to do some random expressions of interest and going through a 3-4 months process of selecting someone, if we come together and we're able to show our strength as a body, and we're able to show the value that we bring, and we're able to show you end-to-end from talent to production to distribution to actual sales to making money to the money coming back, and this is what we are contributing. So you've asked me to bring $1 for every dollar you put in. Well, this studio costs me $10 to put up, so I'm putting in that $10, right? So I'm counting that as part of my costs. I pay my salaries of this amount, count part of my cost. So I want you to match me, and then you fund this aspect and this aspect and this aspect of what we will be doing. And this 10 of us, this is what we are then going to provide for you, and this is how your funding is going to come back. Now, I can assure you this is going to be approved. If it's not approved, we carry what you've designed, we go to an expressions of interest. And if you really say you're the best, then that means you come through the expression of interest as the one who wins it anyway. That's why I said I hope this doesn't put me in trouble, because it's not like it's an approved, it's something that has to go through an approval process. And we have to convince the AFDB that this is why we're not going through an expressions of interest for this. So that becomes a collaboration as opposed to a procurement process. So those are the two ways in which, I mean, if I just think about it now, those are the two ways in which people will be able to access this. Thank you.
Okay. Please, you guys should clap. Wow. Well, this is an industry changer. You know, if we're able to leverage on this. So one key thing, you know, you can easily pick out from what he said is, what have you done? You know, something we could ask us.
So I just felt it's important to mention that this funding is for Nigeria's tech and creative space. These tech guys are not joking. So you guys have to get yourselves together and be prepared, because it's a winner's game basically. So because I can tell you the tech guys, they are ready, basically, they're ready to go. So yeah.
Oh, thank you, sir. Okay, so should I trade out? I wanted to ask him one question. Okay, somebody holding the microphone. Yeah, I want to ask him a question. Sir, now you've heard this, you know, right now my head is just all over the place. What difference do you think that the IDICE program will do to the average young person creating content? It's because we need to be able to see what's going to happen when this hits. It's so that your questions and your thoughts towards it starts cooking. Because if you cannot see the future, you cannot get to a future you cannot see. You know, so as much as possible, can you tell us or give us an inclination? Because we've seen the success that you've been able to do with Trace. You know, and so what successes do you think would come out of the IDICE program?
I think the IDICE program, first of all, is a great initiative to provide fund for the creatives. So it's exactly what would come out of it: a great ecosystem and revenue. So it's like you said, capacity building. You train them, you distribute their content, and you make money for them, and you grow our own local markets so that we are not relying on international markets. So for me, I think that is why I see the future of coming out of IDICE in this. Yeah.
Did we hear that? Okay, everybody seems quiet. Okay, questions. Questions, I don't know. Okay. Please, is there somebody holding the microphone? Nobody? Okay.
Hello. Yeah. Thank you very much. I have to say a big thank you to our distinguished panelists. Thank you for... Yeah. Thank you for bringing this very good news to us in a way that we understand. I just want to very quickly make 2 comments or questions, if you like. The creative industry is very unique, and I've had interactions with bankers for so many years in my personal business. So I understand why there are some challenges accessing funds for creative business. Now, one of the questions I've always asked is this: if I can use my property, which is like real estate, my house, to secure a facility, why can't I use my intellectual property to secure a facility? Because my property, I can sell it forever. When I'm dead, people will still be selling it. But my house, once I sell it once, it's gone. I can't sell it to 2 people without getting into trouble. That is the first question. Another question is, when we are trying to structure financing for the creative industry, especially animation, and when you talk about the tech guys being ready, I've always described animation as the nexus between artistic genius and technology. Because the way arts and technology come together in animation is just out of this world. There's nothing else like it. Okay? So, when, for example, we want to do a full-length feature film in animation, and we need $3 million, and it's going to take 3 years to produce. Are you going to wait for 3 years? Are we going to get 3 years moratorium? How do you factor the peculiarities of this industry, especially animation? How do we factor the peculiarities of it into how we structure this funding. Understanding also that animation actually, like Mr. Promise said, it actually delivers more value, both on the medium and the long term. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Hello. Okay. Thank you for these comments. Right. Talking about, let me even start from the content production you talked about. You know, every industry has its peculiarities, right? And they always factor in these peculiarities into what they call loan structuring, okay, which is styled around the parameters that you're going to be given, you know, that are going to be indicated or enlisted in your offer letter. Now, if it's going to take you 3 years, for instance, or 2 years, for instance, to produce a movie, okay, in the banking parlance, we tend to describe them as describe that period as a moratorium period, okay? Of course, it can be given moratorium, because what's the point of structuring a loan that will fail from day one? It doesn't make sense. Even most guys who had accessed loan from BOI, okay, you can even find out from them, even the movie production, any industry at all, always get moratorium, because you need a period, you know, within that, the loan tenor, to be able to get yourself prepared, and then get, before you can start running. You understand? You know, take for instance, for movie, we know there's so many things that we're going to movie production, even your content production, from pre to production to post-production. You can actually, you know, put a timeline to it, but you can estimate it to say, okay, from now to 18 months, I should get done with it. In fact, sometimes when you're talking about 18 months, you can even advise you to do 24 months, in actual sense, you know, because, you know, give and take, you know, things can actually spill to that. So there's flexibility when it comes to loan tenor. And that is what the development bank or like Bank of Industry can actually, you know, give to you. You know, for deposit money banks, right? I know they are a bit economical when it comes to moratorium. Well, they're completely private sector, okay, and they also have, you know, alternative, you know, project before them, so they want to look out for the best. You know, so you won't blame them because you have to declare returns, you know, to investors who own the bank. You understand? You know, so peculiarities, industry peculiarities is not a problem when it comes to that. You know, so that's that for the moratorium you mentioned. You know, so generally, we've been fair, you know, to creative industry because it's a unique industry, like you mentioned. If you look at the parameters that we use in assessing even loan requests within the creative sector, it's quite different from what we apply when it comes to conventional fund like manufacturing, you know, all of the solid mineral. So there are two different things. Even sometimes in the course of moratorium, you as the promoter, if you feel that this time is just too short for me to deliver, you can still come back to the institution to say, please, can you extend? Okay? So this flexibility is actually, because the most important thing for us is for the project to be successful. And we have, you know, many testimonies to actually prove that.
So just to speak about the use of IP as collateral, it's a critical issue across music, across basically across the creative sector, and it's a conversation that is ongoing. It's mostly a policy issue. How do you first and foremost securitize IP in a way that people can then sort of quantify the value of that IP, right? So it's an ongoing conversation. It's one of the key things that, you know, engaging with the industry that IDIS would like to look at. And I mean, if IDIS is able to get this as a win, that becomes a very big win for the whole ecosystem. But it's definitely something that we need to look at, and would be good to have conversations around. Another thing that is potentially possible to look at is even the value. So if there is a movie to be made that has the potential or some form of commitment, so like was speaking about the sequel to Amina, for example. Now that's the content, the Amina content itself is already a collateral, right? That can be used to secure a loan towards making that video, because you've been able to show that you did this before, and these are the sort of promissory notes from, you know, content producers and all of that. That's my view on that. But it's definitely a conversation that we need to carry forward. I'll be willing to engage further on that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. Please, any other questions? Okay. All right. Okay.
Thank you very much. First, let me thank the organizers of this wonderful event. I have, maybe I'll call this intervention. I'll start with the Animation Society, Animation Nigeria. My observation first, you need to popularize animation in Nigeria. Likely, most animators in Nigeria don't even watch Nigerian television. Likely, it's an assumption. I would advise you form a partnership with Broadcasting Association of Nigeria as a body, not individual television, where you can have a conversation. If possible, go into partnership with them. Present to them old works that they can start showing on their television in order to popularize whether it can become a big business in Nigeria, just like the music I've done. That is on the side of the Animation Nigeria. On the side of government, this is an advice. In the past, politics have been mixed with Nigeria funding, whereby a lot of money budgeted for intervention for the industry were filtered away as a result of mixing politics with this government funding. If we do the same again, it will go the same way. We will only hear of the billions and it will have no impact. I pray, like you said, that this will not become the case. When election comes, we will not have to use this money as patronage to win election. That is on the side of government. On the side of BOI, you spent a lot of money. At the same time, you created a cartel that became a bottleneck. And as a result of that, the money invested did not return. It is not possible for me to be a producer, and you now want to recommend a studio, director, producer, who maybe the budget for this production is about 50 million, and already they've taken 40 million. And I'm left with what cannot sustain me and do the job at the end of the day. I will advise that if I come to you and you accept my project, let these people intervention just be at the point of recommendation. Don't tell me the studio to go to. Because I created this thing in the first place, they didn't create it. And many people who have excelled did not work with these studios and the likes. So if I come to you, you want to fund me, let me be the one to recommend my partners. Don't give me people that
Okay, all right. Okay. Thank you very much for that comments. But let me clarify that that wasn't the structure of the fund. The Nolly Fund, I talked about ring fencing these guys, and I talked about having a number of studio guys that the producer can choose from. Okay, even down to the distribution line. Most of the producers that were funded actually had the flexibility of choosing one of those, whether Silverbird or Film One, or so it was a matter of choice. Now, when we talk about intellectual property, right, that was exactly the process of the Nolly Fund, because no collateral was taken. The only thing that was actually held up was the movie itself, the content itself. So that's the true definition of intellectual property. All right. Now the content, like you mentioned, the Queen Amina, come to contents. Of course, the producer is still alive. He can testify that nobody collected any property from him. It was that content, and he chose the people he wanted to choose. But then again, some of them who actually produced, right, and then did their edits in Nigeria, also contacted studio outside the country because they wanted better improvement. And because we're going to sell on international platforms, some international guys will say, you know what, you have to use our studio. So it was like a post-edit that some of them actually did abroad. So they were not actually strong, or they were not, there was no pressure on them, right, not to be flexible. Now, what we tried to do is, because it was a $1 billion fund, we also as bankers account for these funds. Because when the CBN auditor comes to your institution and your non-performing loan is high, right, it attracts sanction. And sometimes when these monies are lost, you tend to make provision for that. And how do you provide for this fund? That means the money lost will be taken out of your profit. And then if you're not going to sustain that operation, you close down. Is it better for the bank to close down? Where are you going to access fund? So the flexibility is limited to the extent of those studio guys that were selected, about 5 of them. So when you're working as a content producer and your film is reviewed and then cleared by the advisors who were also picked up from the industry, okay? Then you now have a list of studios that you want to choose from. Then if you feel that none of those studios can actually match your standard, what you do is that you say, no, I'm not interested. Can I get my own studio? No, that's not a problem, but you have to securitize the loan. You have to characterize it. And that is the case with the girl, that's the Osibero. When she came, she looked at the number of studios. She said, no, I'm not interested in it. She looked at she said, yeah, I'll go with the film house and the studio, no problem. But for the studio, can I get my own studio, right, into the scheme? He said, no problem. But you have to secure it. He said, no. She brought the property, which is not even up to the amount of what she collected. Because what she collected, in the bank, there's a metric, right, what they call the fixed asset coverage, that you need to meet to be able to even access funding. She was quite far below that, because the value of the property she brought was far below the amount she was going to collect. But we said, okay, you know what? Because we're already flexible, let's allow her go. Okay? She brought her studio. Okay? Everything she did was personally driven. Hannah did what she wanted to do, and yet she was successful. Even those who were also, who took advantage of that model too, most of them were successful. In fact, some of them that could not pay because they were just limited to the cinemas. By the time the digital distribution platforms came on stream, they took their film to the digital distribution platform and then paid off. The likes of the Dr. Okwa Williams, and most of them too, even Kunle, they all paid off. Do you understand? Even right now, we're still getting recoveries. Even as 2 weeks ago, about 2 of them called, right? Yeah, they're still on the NPL, the non-performing loan schedule. But 2 of them called to say they found a distributor. Okay, can we have account number? Do you understand? So it's not a lost case. We are still recovering. In fact, I can assure you that we've recovered about 60 to 70% of the non fund. That's why there's still possibility to reactivate the fund. Like I was telling somebody yesterday, one of the directors, okay, I said, if we have to reintroduce the non fund again, we'll do better. He said, how? I said, now we have distribution platforms across. We were actually stuck to cinemas. Today we have digital distribution platforms. If you have a contract with a Netflix, for instance, or you have contract with even some of those distributors we talk about, even the Amazon, the Irokos, the African Magic, some of those, and we see the contracts with a dedicated amount, that's even much more than what you're going to collect. We could leverage on that to give you a loan. It's just like the person who walked in and they showed us a contract of $1.2 million from Netflix. Why won't I give her a loan, even without collateral? Right? Yeah, because that remittances can be used as security. So we're looking at various ways of going to support these guys. So it's not over yet. There are a lot of creative ways we're going to be looking at. Okay, if for instance, again, that's why again, partnership is, I always love to encourage partnership in the creative segment of, Nigerian creative segment, because they don't like partnership, they fight a lot, and that's a fact. Now, when they begin to come together, I've seen a group of people, right? One is a content creator. In fact, it was Ebony that actually did the model with, what's this popular, No, not even Wedding Party, fantastic. Wedding Party, okay, the studio guy there was an investor, right? By way of his studio, involvement, right? So you can bring everybody together. I've seen a group today that we are attending to. One is a content creator, the other one is bringing the property, the other one is bringing, so they came together, all right, and they shot this film. And the good thing is that even investment banks, right, are already having confidence in the industry. One of the investment bankers told me how they funded about 7 films. Even the recent film,
Black Book,
of course, was funded by one of the investment bankers, right? Investment bank too, and they're excited they're going to do more. I know some of the guys who have called to say, please, if you see producers who are actually doing so well, would like to invest. So we have taken content of movie industry to a level where the confidence level is actually rising, and that's why he talked about going to be looking at different parameters based on which we can also have. But at the center of this whole thing is integrity of those parameters. Even if a judge, for instance, comes to us to say, I want 1 billion, and what she has on ground, whether by way of collateral editing, we can just close her eyes and give to her, because she's built an exceptional track record of good debt service record. The first one, she was given about 3 years or 4 years, she paid in less than 18 months. The second one, she was given another 3-4 years, she's paid less than 60 months. The third one, she was still given 4 years, she paid less than 18 months. She's now on her 5th film. And in her own trajectory, right? The first, it has been a kind of a scaling process. The first one was close to maybe 50, 60, just all within the fund, funding limit, which was 50 million. But the second time she came back again, she did within that limit. Third, the fourth one was ×5. You understand? Because now, apart from the local confidence, of course, every cinema wants to screen our films. But international distributors are saying, you know what, don't go to the cinema, we're going to keep it for the next 5 years. That is the confidence we need to build. And so if confidence gets to that level, or industry confidence gets to that level, even international investors will be chasing you guys all around. That's a fact, yeah.
Thank you for that. My name is Ayodele Alegba, and I want to commend Esther for the powerful questions. If I had like 7 questions that I wanted to ask, I was telling Mr. Muyo, I'm coming here to ask plenty questions. But she answered, she asked most of the questions. But I want to take us away a little bit, because I'm a studio owner. When I left my job, my cushy job, to start up spoof animation, I didn't just start it off to make money, even though money was good. But I started it off because I found young people out there on the streets going into drugs, going to Yahoo, going to other schemes like that. And most of the people that started off my company were people that are actually trained. I picked up on the streets and I trained. And right now they are one of the top animators, top storyboard artists, top colorists now in the industry. In fact, I took some of them to Ethiopia recently, and they performed fantastic amongst other African animators over there. So for me, it's about job creation. I don't know, I'm so passionate about job creation. Everybody just wants to do IP, they want to go push, they want to make money, blah, blah. And then they just don't care about what's left. What do we have? Because there are, in countries like Korea, like the Philippines, they have a huge service structure whereby they collect jobs from America to do in Korea. They collect jobs from, these developed European countries to work in their countries. And that's Forex exchange, Forex that we're bringing into Nigeria. So my dream, I was talking to my guys in the studio, my dream is to have a mechanized division where you have like 100 animators just animating, and then there's content coming from abroad, from Disney, saying, look, we know spoof animation, they can do the job, send it to spoof, they will deliver it in 1 month. And there are people on ground, and we are training them, because we've developed the pipeline, but even from secondary school, you can jump into the pipeline before you wait for university days. 1 year there, you can do something with us while you wait for your admission if you still want to go to school. So I wanted to ask, apart from this IP thing, what is IDICE going to do to help people like me to mop up salaries? For example, during the COVID-19, I was so grateful that the government was able to support us with salary. They paid some of my salaries for I think 3 months. And that was so huge for me, because I was like, thank God, even though there was no job coming, I could still keep these people and keep them in the business. So what is IDICE doing for someone like me who's trying to scale up and have create employment, job opportunities for young people who want to get into this field, train them on the job, and then put them out there to also make a living for themselves? That's my first question. Second question is, when you mentioned that the IT people are involved, I get a bit scared. Like you said, they are prepared. What percentage of these funds, you say, look, worst comes to worst, this 160 billion or whatever you have, 10 billion must be kept for animation, no matter what happens. Please, 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 this one must not go to that side. Is there anything like that, so that at least we are secured in a way? Thank you very much. No, it shouldn't be all returns. Because at the end of the day, if the 10 people collect all the money, finish, animation will still be where it is today. We'll get to that one. Thank you.
Yeah, so thanks for that. And I think I'll first also speak about the fears of sort of political mismanagement. And so, firstly, every penny of every dollar I've mentioned, aside from the one from the Bank of Industry, is not free money. It's a loan from these financiers to the Nigerian government. So the Nigerian federal government has to repay these monies. So it's very critical that these monies are not frittered away. And the way the program is structured is that the money will be dispersed in batches. So there's not going to be a huge fund somewhere for someone to fritter away. So when the batch is dispersed, the government has to show proof to the financiers that it has expended 50% of that batch, and that it has expended it in line with the guidelines of the financiers before the next batch is dispersed. So there are a lot of things that have been put in place just to ensure that this fund is judiciously used and that it is used for what it was intended. And to your question, sir. So the first question, I asked you a question when you spoke earlier about the sustainability, and that's really why I asked that question. How do we build a sustainable ecosystem that looks at the talent, looks at the production and everything? Because at the end of the day, right, the reason you're training, if you're training and there are no opportunities, then there is no sustainability. The reason people pay money to go to India to learn tech is because they know that after I learn, there's something for me to do. So there must be something that we're doing that is ensuring that there are opportunities for these people. And I like the conversation you have. I don't know if you know Utrico Studios, the guys that did Gami. This was a conversation I was having with them some months ago. And they had also talked just about what you talked about. How can we ensure that we're getting, jobs? A lot of these jobs are currently go to India, go to Bangladesh. How can we bring these jobs to Nigeria? And it will be much cheaper for these guys, but we must be able to provide that quality. So the question is, as you're training, what do you need? What is the infrastructure, the equipment that you require to be able to build to the standards that allow these people to give you jobs? And like Mr. Promise has said, how then can we fund that like they did in the movie industry, right? That now makes you marketable. And one of the things that we're hoping to do next year, totally dependent, of course, on the schedule of His Excellency the Vice President, is to do a kind of tour. And where we'll be going on that tour will be dependent, of course, on where the industry thinks the opportunities are. And we'll take you, hopefully, with the Vice President. He will go as the chief marketer of the country, and we'll sell these things abroad. And we'll say to them, look, these are the opportunities. This is what we are willing to invest in. So we want you to come this way, because one of the easiest ways to get investments in is for the government itself to show that it has a skin in the game and that it is putting itself forward and saying, I'm standing for these people, and we're coming with them to you to say that you can actually invest in them and support them. So that's a critical thing, and there were a lot of positives when the former Vice President did this also in 2018, and I'm sure that His Excellency the Vice President will oblige us of this request to do something like this either next year or the year after. So those are the things you need to start to think about. Who are those we need to be talking to? The government, for the first time, has a Ministry of Creative Economy. Where are the places that we can go with the Minister of Creative Economy next year to have conversations, to have those engagements that open up our markets to the world? What are those opportunities, and how can we work together on IDIs to make these trips possible and to make these sort of engagements possible? On the percentages for tech and for creative, while there is no sort of hard-coded sort of percentage, it is also, we clearly know, of course, that this funding is for both ecosystems. However, one beauty of animation, and I think it was mentioned earlier about being at the intersection, is that, as an animation project, you can come as a tech project, and you can come as a creative project. So you basically have a foot in both places. That's one. The second thing is there will definitely be equity in the distribution. We'll try as much as possible, and we're already doing this. We're also taking into consideration the differences in the needs. So for example, you will find, let me use the access to finance option for example. While there are models for equity that are clearly defined for tech, there may not be that for the creative sector. But while there are models for debt on the creative sector, there's not much of that on the tech. So what you may find is that there may be more money on the creative sector debt option than there is on equity, while a lot of the tech guys are more interested in accessing equity. So we're looking at all those complexities and trying to understand the specific needs of each of those ecosystems and ensuring that we're able to work with you. But what's most important is that as we go along, like you had mentioned, things will change as we go along. We'll continue to be flexible, continue to look at what works and what does not work, and we are hopeful that in our first year we'll have a lot of learnings. In the second year we'll be able to do a lot more in the third year, and that by the time this program is complete, everybody in the ecosystem will be able to say that, okay, we actually felt the impact of this in the work that we do.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Emmanuel Ugundimu from Paradise Arts. I want to direct this question to Mr. Promise. This is, I would say this one is out of concern. Yes. If I clearly heard you well, sir, when you started, you said Film 1 was an initiative spinned out from BOI. Am I correct, sir? Film House. Okay, but Film House and Film 1. Is Film 1 and Film House not the same? It's the distribution, but we can say they are from the parent. Okay. All right. So, and I also understand, sir, that we still need to create more distribution channels with regards to cinema because we don't have enough of cinema houses. Okay, so this is where my question is coming from. As at now, I understand that Film 1, I should call them a film house, they are making their own original movies now. And I'm looking at them like a distribution outlet that should serve the purpose of, we have content and we want to, bring it out there and but now they are centered on making their own stuff. And there is this scenario where a particular partner of mine produced a movie and Film House was a Film 1 that actually distributed it, but from what I heard was, they didn't give that movie the time that it needed to garner a lot of funds. So I'm saying that, is there a way that the BOI, in case they might make more distribution, they might focus on telling them to specify basically on distribution and not creating their own stuff, because it might now result to them giving more attention to their own stuff. Because right now, as I speak to you, when I was at the cinema last week, there is this particular film. It's written there, a Film 1 original. And I want to tell you that they're going to do everything in their power to make sure that that kind of movie gets a large audience. So how can we regulate that? What policy can we make to make such institutions, when they are created, to have a certain attention and focus so that they don't, sway and start affecting, other aspects? Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, okay. For that concern. But let me be upfront by telling you that it would be unfair, right, to actually box them into a tight corner, right? They're in the marketplace to make money as well. But let me tell you something. Even if they decide to focus on just their film, they can't make the kind of money they're making. They need your film too to be able to income bracket. And that's a fact. So most of the films that they film, right, are films that they also have investment in. Okay, which was the partnership I talked about. I know of many guys that they partner with. So they try to invest in various films, okay, because they have the platform to be able to do so. There are films they can't say no to, okay? And for them to have set up a cinema house means that they need content to be able to also sustain the operation. So why are they setting up everywhere? Okay, so it's two-way thing. Now they set up a cinema. They also set up the distribution platform. Now the distribution, right? They are licensed agents to Netflix and Amazon, right? They also have, for me, it's a business strategy purely. and which every businessman wants to also do the same. So if you tell them to just focus on distribution, then what will happen to other aspects of the business? Okay, so right now I also understand that they're trying to do some digital platforms also. So you're not going to stop them from doing so. You also have your own value proposition that you want to sell. Right? They do a lot of American people. We had that challenge with them when we were doing the non-refund stuff. Because most producers will call us, they only kept their film on their platform for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. We will call and they will tell us, see, we need to pay our loans, we need to pay our bills. You know why? Because they were giving more attention to foreign movies, to foreign films. But today you can see that even that ratio is thinning out. Okay, I know in there's some African countries that will insist, even India, right? That will insist that you have to show 70-30 ratio in favor of their own local films because they want to grow their own local sectors, right? Their distribution sector. So those kind of policies can come in play. But I believe that it also has to do with negotiation. Now, if you're telling a film one, for instance, to say, okay, you know what? Why not give Nigerian films, some leverage? Do 60-40. Do the American, the foreign film 40, and then you do the local 60. The question they're going to ask the government official to say, did you support me in my infrastructure? Am I not going to pay back? Because you see, you have it's a pool fund. The investment you're seeing around, even the one they have outside the country or so, was not purely driven or purely funded by the film one owners themselves. They got investment from companies. There are some investment banks that have investment there. I know when we gave them their first fund, all right, though they paid back in 18 months, but of course there was an investment bank that came into the picture. Okay, so those funds too have to repatriate to those guys. So it's strictly business interest. But like I said, if you look at the film house, maybe some years ago or thereabout, right, that price was high. But now the price is coming down. The price is coming down because people also have access to what? To distribution platforms. Now, if film house is not giving you the expected attention, then you go to a Genesis. If Genesis is not adding more cinemas, right? Adding more cinema, the same thing Viva is also coming to also expand their platform. Okay, so what we should be talking about is to see how we can also expand, the platforms of some of these competitors. And that's why in an industry where there's no competition, there's always a problem. And that's why DSTV is not doing what they're doing. Except for Star Times, that's also trying to give them, a run for their money. However, there are other digital, what's it called, DSTV or on-demand TV that are also coming up, right? That are also going to give DSTV, some competition. Right? So what we need to do is that if you look at our environment, the dominant forces are, international companies. A DSTV is a South African company, but they have dominance in the environment. So if you create a CBI to compete with them, wouldn't that favor Nigeria? Yeah. If, for instance, the likes of Glo didn't come up to challenge the likes of MTN, probably would have been doing pay per minute. You understand? But Glo came up, and that's how they all went back. So in their countries, they do something different, and they come down here and they give you something different because you're not asking questions. So there are also companies that are going to challenge this. So right now, sorry for putting this out, right? The Star Times in the next 3 months, you're going to see something different from Star Times. That's the company that's supported by BOI recently, okay? So they're coming with different dimensions. You're going to see a different kind of competition. But that's not that alone. Then there's a local company too that is bringing to the table a multi-dimensional model, even beyond what DSTV is going to be giving to you. That company is going to be off. I mean, they're going to start operating in fact, this year, all right? The last quarter of this year. So these are the kind of companies we should encourage. So when you say you want to kill an international company that came to create jobs in your country because you don't want to, you're wasting your time. What you should do is to support your own local companies. We've seen in some countries where international companies came in and they ran out because local companies were actually supported, okay, to give those guys a run for their money. So that's a fact. So if Film One is not serving you rightly, you go to where? Genesis. If Genesis is not serving you rightly, you go to where? You go to Viva. So it's an open market. It's not a monopolistic market. It's an open market. But the fact of the matter is that just imagine a Film One telling an AY that I can't screen. In fact, they'll be the one to bet. In fact, sometimes when you come to them with your content, right, they even propose to invest in your content. And that boils down to your value proposition. So whatever we're going to be doing, let's put our best foot forward.
Sorry, can I just contribute to that? Sorry, just quickly.
But I thought I had the mic.
Sorry. Sorry, panelists. No vex. I wanted to just add to what he said. I understand from the context of what he's trying to mention. If we have to compare it to the international market, which is the United States, I know the United States, they have like probably over 75,000 screens in the US. But I think what he's trying to mention is policy. Because of where we're hoping the industry will grow up to, where we have, please, I'm not trying to bash Film One or anything. They've done amazing work, but it's to avoid to put a policy that avoids monopoly in the future. That is unavoidable when an industry is rapidly growing. So in the States, they don't have Disney running cinemas to avoid monopoly. Because if Disney is running cinemas, they will run all their movies back to back. So I think, for us, where we have amazing distributors like Film One that have come into the market and have pushed the market as far as it has gone, to avoid monopoly in the next 10 to 15 years, where you still have a distributor also allowed to create content and also allowed to control some certain sharehold of the market, which doesn't look so strong as it is because we have over 200 screens. But if we put into perspective when it runs into 15,000 screens, which is very possible in Nigeria, it's just a matter of time, and the sharehold of a distributor is running to 30-40%. That means they somehow control the market. So I know definitely now we don't have the policies in place, but it would be a good thing for that policy to be put in place to encourage for producers to be producers and distributors to be distributors, where they don't have that control, because it's actually a benefit nevertheless, if we have to be sincere.
All right, okay, so yes, now my turn. Yes, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Francis Onwache. I work in the creative sector as a producer and an actor. Let me congratulate the organizers for Lagos International Film Festival. I think it's one of the festivals in Nigeria that is very unique, because I haven't seen any other one taking care of works of animation. But what I'd like to say to the organizers is that, particularly to animators, if you're here, you should stop hiding, stop being too conservative. People must know that you exist. People must know where you are and how you operate. Only a few days ago, I was surprised to see that some of you entered your films for AMA Awards, African Movie Academy Awards, and I saw some really nice stuff. So well done and congratulations. Well done to you panelists, but I just like little intervention to promise, if I get your name right. You know, I have always advocated that Bank of Industry must go through some exercise of re-engineering. Re-engineering the templates of your loan scheme for the people working in the industry. In my assessment, in the last 5 years, I do not know how many Nolly Fund loans that you have granted out. From the research I made, I think the non-performing loans were so much, and there were various reasons for that. And somebody had tried to mention that because the producer always gets the least end of the stick. I know, and I'm not guessing that BOI funded most of these guys who have facilities, who you insist that the producers must approach for your own protection. That's fine, but it needs a re-engineering, because I am a producer and I'm a consultant in the environment, so I know all your processes, but I think it needs a re-engineering. Now, that's one. Two, hopefully, if policy allows you, I think you must also find a way of letting the government, Ministry of Finance, or whatever it is, to expand your possibilities for, even if it's like, if you like, cottage. You must encourage public-private partnership stuff, because you may not be able to fund
10 film houses, right? So people must be able to engage in small cottage cinemas to cater for, people in Ekpe, people in Ikurudu, people in Badagry, and all of that, because people cannot come all over. Somebody mentioned screens. If you go to the places where film is filmed, in US, India, and all of that, the films per inch it's heavy. I mean, compared to Nigeria, so it is difficult for filmmakers to be successful when there are not enough screens in the market. And lastly, let me just say that part of the restructuring process, I think you have touched it, that we will not all have the kind of collaterals that we need, because I can tell you that more than 70-80% of the producers who approach some of these organizations for partnerships do not really have interest to do that. I know for one last person now who's just got a deal with Prime, and I'm surprised that he has not even approached you guys. He has and he needs, funding support to be able to execute his television project. Is I think six-part stuff. Maybe if I have time, we can talk one-on-one later. But thank you, congratulations to all of you who tried to be here and keep doing it. Ogamwe Wakayode, make this very public, make this very open, so that more and more Nigerians in the creative sector can also benefit from you. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, sir. Any other questions? Okay.
Good afternoon.
Sorry, please, if you have, excuse me, please, if you have questions, please can you raise your hand now, so that I can have a number.
At this stage, we have to request for Amala here.
Thank you. Okay. No, I will probably will take. Okay, so let's peg it. Okay, so we'll take only 3 more questions. Okay, one more.
Just one. Please.
Okay, just one. So we assume that your question is the last question.
Yes.
Okay, but before I go to your question, Mr. Sam just came in.
Yes. Welcome, Mr. Sam.
Yes, Mr. Sam just. So we'll ask him to come forward. Hey, sir. All right. Okay, so Mr. Sam is the Senior Vice President, International, Global for Trace. We've also been looking forward to having him here. And so it's amazing that he's here now. And so, Mr. Sam, sorry that I have to hold you. I'm sorry. But it will not, it won't be good if he's here and we don't put him on the hot seat. Okay, sir. We've actually been talking about the IDICE program. I don't know how much of the IDICE program. And the IDICE program presents an opportunity for us as creatives for us to have the finance to be able to create, which is usually where most of us have our bottlenecks. Am I speaking for most people here? Yes. So now, I want you to give what your take would be if this finance comes into this industry, and what do you think? How much change it can actually bring to the industry, if creatives, yes, are funded.
Good afternoon, all. And I'm sorry that I'm competing with your stomach, with your hunger. But no, thank you so much. And please, was no disrespect. I was just unable to get here. I was ably represented by my young man to the left, Mr. Damola. So I will just comment, and I hope it's not out of place since I wasn't here for the whole discussion. But I know that one of the things Promise would have talked about, and others here on the panel have talked about, is the fact that on one side, the monetization of any content must be in place before you can really invest heavily in that content. As a media company, as a media company with a traditional TV channel, I would say we've enjoyed, and I'm using past tense for a reason, in the past, an advantage by having a TV platform upon which to put content. We realize revenue from that through what we call our carriage deals, DSTV, CanalSat, Sky, all around the world. And so that's, in that way, our content is funded, and there's a reason to produce content and put it out. Beyond that, I'll tell you, these days, we're struggling ourselves finding a solution to this. And it's not because for a company like Trace, or an organization like Trace, that it's that hard for us to get the money to make something. But how do we make money off of it, right? It's just make content, beautiful content, and I know I didn't get to see so many faces in the audience, but I know from what I saw that was said, that was submitted for the Academy Awards last week, some of the stuff I've seen, some of the stuff that Ogamoya has shared with me, there's amazing work out there, but unfortunately, if there isn't a way to monetize it, then we're at zero, right? So that value chain, that system has to still be developed. And that's why BOI and others are not just focused on just make the content. We have the talent, we have the creativity going, we have the stories, right? Sure, maybe we still need to upskill a bit in a few places here and there, but who doesn't, to be honest, right? Especially with the pace of technology. But when there's the value chain to monetize it is not there, then you're basically at step zero. You're making it for fun. We can all just say, hey, good job, please have a job, because otherwise, nothing for you, all right? And so let me get back to the way I started to explain. So even at Trace, why we're struggling is because we want to invest more in content, both as Trace, both with investors, partner investors, grant makers, etc. But when we spend, and please let's not shout at the numbers. I think last year when I was at Lifanima, I talked about the numbers. Remember the discussion I had and talked about the fact that to spend $100,000, which nowadays is only 100 million naira, Abi, to spend $100,000 on a pilot, just a pilot to test if a TV show is normal in the West, because of the monetization windows they have. And because if you produce an outstanding TV show or a sporting event like the Super Bowl that I pointed to, the American Super Bowl, you sell one ad for $7 million, 7 billion naira for a 30 seconds ad. Whereas here, even when we play World Cup in Africa, because of the economy, it's about $10,000 for one ad during the World Cup across all of Africa with more viewers. So there's partly a function of our economy. So for us now, when we try and put money into content, how are we monetizing that content? We are not, we don't make any extra money when we put it on our TV channel. And so we have to be more dynamic about it. That's why you see us leaning more into the film area, into series that we may not even put on Trace, right? We have a Trace Studios division. We acquired a studio in South Africa about 2 years ago. We're producing for Netflix, Amazon, whoever, and we're doing that because even if we make the best TV show in the world and put it on Trace, zero. Eh? So guys out there, and let me now speak to the those that are still growing their careers, right? It's. I think I love what my boss said, right? Don't stop, don't give up. Even if you have to get a job while you do this at night. Me, I don't know how many jobs I had as a younger man, and it was enough, right? So we know it's not easy, and especially today in Nigeria, you choke, right? You choke. That's why this amala you offer is for everybody, not just here. But more importantly, that ultimately there are some things beyond your control in the industry. But what you do it very well. Put your best foot forward, as Promise said, because that quality of animation, trust me, there's another 100 guys behind you coming up doing the same thing. And if you don't give it an amazing story, if you don't really focus on the craft of it, that's your work. that's your work. And I tell you, I see lots of content. Unfortunately, I see lots of content. I'm like, yeah, guy, go back and start again, or go back and rejig it. You know, and I'm saying a lot. I hope I'm in order. Okay. Because the other aspect I just wanted to talk about on that is, I think I even said this last year, is that I always try to remind people, especially in music, but it's very valid in content too. You know, a lot of people, all of us have different opinions when it comes to music. That one it's rubbish music. It's not classic. It won't last for years. Or why are they only singing about things that people like? I don't want to be crass here. You know, about booze or babes or guys or whatever, right? That's not for this. And again, take what I'm now saying to relate to content. I always explain to people that there's good content or good music and fun music, right? And when the two of them join, you get amazing things. But all are valid. All are valid. So I say that to mean that a skit maker making things on their phone, they're very valid. Now, you may get a hit from that becomes viral, but is that going to, you know, be a content piece that lasts for 10 years and that people keep coming back to that? Maybe. It's possible, but, you know, it's a combination of quality, and ultimately it's not just the visual quality, it's the quality of the work you put into it. So I'll stop there. I think that if we get this money from iDice, and I am aware of iDice, and I know that the bank is well behind it and other funders, and we're trying to see how we can play into that as well, that it would definitely boost our industry. There's some amazing creators out there with great stories. We are Niger, we've already proven it. We can do this thing anywhere in the world, but everybody has to step up their skill, and we need to solve some of these ways of doing it.
Right. Thank you very much, sir. I'm sure that we've all, you know, found some place for ourselves, you know, in all of this, and it's quite a bit, you know, and we should go after this and see what our learnings are. I'm so sorry we can't take any more questions. I'm so sorry. You know, you want to say something, sir? Okay.
Yeah. So I know that there may be further questions, so I'll just give my email address. So it's my name is Ife Adebayo, right? Okay. So Adebayo at iDice. So I is IDICE, dice like you're rolling a dice, .ng. So if you send your questions, I will be able to refer you to the right persons that will be able to respond to you. But most importantly, if there are potentials for collaboration, I already know I'll have to reach out to the animation, to your group, right?
Animation Nigeria, yes.
Yes, Animation Nigeria, and you know, if there are strong associations like that we can have conversations on collaboration, we could also send an email. But in your subject, just put life. Sorry? Lifanima, yes, so that I know where it's coming from, and I will forward to the people that will be able to respond.
Please make your email make sense. Don't just email him and say send me money.
Oh yes, please. If it doesn't make sense, you'll be added to the mailing group where you get information on when expressions of interest are going out and stuff. So still be useful. Thank you.
Okay.
So Adebayo. So IADEBAYO at iDice. So IDICE.ng. So that's it.
Okay. Thank you very much.
NG, Niger. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I hand over to Mr. Muiwa.
Thank you very much, Esther. Please, let's put our hands together for Mr. Esther Kevin Dalamosi. She's been fantastic all day. Thank you very much. We can't finish talking about money here today. We can't. So I'm happy that Mr. has given us his contact, but you can always reach us on our social media handles, Lifanima, and then, of course, Animation Nigeria. I'd like to say a very big thank you to our distinguished panelists, Mr. Mbotidem Johnson of Animation Nigeria, Ife Adebayo, the iDice chief that came in from Abuja just to be with us today, and Mr. Promise George. He has made a lot of promises today, and we will hold him to his promise. I know he keeps his promises, so he's a very, very dependable promise keeper. And he will be seeing a lot more of us, I'm sure. Thank you very much, Mr. Promise. Samo, thank you very much for all the support, and thank you so much for making your platform available to support this animation festival. We appreciate you. Damola, thank you very much for holding forth for Mr. Samo. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you. Please give yourselves a round of applause. We have to call it a day right now, unfortunately, but we are back here 6 p.m. on Thursday for our cocktails and animation awards. Tomorrow we have some hours of virtual sessions. In fact, there are 3 sessions tomorrow. One is Winners Roundtable. Past winners of Lifanima are going to be talking about their works. The other one is Kickstarter, which is going to be handled by Mr. Ajaka himself, Ayodele Eleba, and he's going to be telling us how can you kickstart your project, how can you leverage. Kickstarter is also one of the options for funding, and he's going to be talking about that. And then the third session tomorrow is going to be facilitated by a veteran animator, Mr. Ati Romero. He's going to be talking about animation production pipeline. If you want to create a series, how can you get something that maybe will probably take 1 year? How can you get it done in 3 months? Through creating a workable pipeline, reduce time, reduce cost, and all of that. So these are 3 fantastic sessions we have tomorrow. Check our social media handles so that you can join virtually. These are all virtual sessions, but we are back here on Thursday by 6 p.m. for more animation, for more fun. Thursday at 6 p.m. for more animation, for more fun. We are going to have some artists performing. It's going to be fun. And then we're going to have some drinks and everything. So thank you very much, everybody. I thank you all. And we look forward to seeing you online tomorrow and on site on Thursday. Thank you very much.
Are we recording outside? We should park, Abby.